Well, welcome everyone. I'm Kingsley, and today I'll be giving you some updates for the investor group. This is our 31st investor group call, and we have a great panel of speakers as well. So I'll start with a brief background to the investor group. Then we'll cover the investments and deals in June, July, and August. And then we'll have speakers across space, biotech, and clean meats. And we'll finish off with questions. We'll give a brief run through of how to set a deal up in the Slack, how to pledge for a deal. And by the way, this call will be recorded for those that couldn't make the call. So the investor group is comprised of 200 investors from over 20 countries. Our mission is to co-invest in the world's most ambitious entrepreneurs. And some of our investments include companies like Relativity Space, Volumetric, SpaceX, Coinbase, and Robinhood. And we have Ryan to talk a bit more about our values.
Thank you, Kingsley. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan, as you all know by now. Welcome to version 31 of our investor call. As you all know, we are a radically proactive, transparent group of angel investors who all participate collectively to the growth, both individually and the companies that we invest in, all while respecting the privacy of one another and those companies. And this is what makes such a valuable investor group. We are delighted to have you all today and looking forward to sharing some great updates with you.
Thank you, Ryan. So investments and deals. Last month, we had Axiom Space, which was probably the largest deal we've done in the group. Maybe Ryan can talk a bit more about that.
Yes, thank you, Kingsley. As you all know, we joined forces with another member in the group, Nicholas, and the Venture Collective, to form what is to date our largest mega SPV at 2.3 million. I believe that Axiom is truly one of the best deals that we've invested in. We got in early. We know the founder, we know the company very well, we know the market, we are bullish on space, and I am going to be extremely excited to watch this thing progress. It's definitely an exciting time for the space industry, and this is a fantastic company.
Thank you, Ryan. And for this month, we have a bunch of the most popular deals listed in here. Maybe Ryan could start with a brief bit on SpaceX.
Thank you, Kingsley. Yes, we are extremely excited and looking forward to getting some equity in SpaceX. Kingsley and I have been working extremely hard and diligent to acquire shares into this company. As you all know, there's been probably some of the significant demand and interest for this company and equity in this company, probably in the history of the company. So it's not easy, but we are working hard. We are excited and looking forward to closing on some of that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ryan. And we have Megan to talk a bit more about Space Fund.
Yes, thank you. Space Fund, actually the deadline for making a commitment is tomorrow. So if you're interested in learning more, please go to the DD Space Fund channel and reach out to me with any questions. We are a venture capital fund investing in the new space sector, and all the details are in the channel.
Thank you, Megan. And we have Ryan to talk a bit more about EnergyX.
Thank you, Kingsley. Yes, EnergyX is a new deal that I brought to the group in the energy space, specifically targeting the lithium extraction and production. As you all know, we're in the midst of an energy revolution, and EnergyX is a really unique proposition through their IP and their product offering to reduce the capital expenditure for these large lithium extractors and producers. And as you all know, with the rise of Tesla and electric and clean energy, we are going to see one of the largest increases in demand for lithium that we have seen in all of human history. So I am personally contributing 25K to this company. I've known the founder for 2 years, and I'm bullish on the space, the company, the technology, and looking forward to closing on that.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ryan. And we have Don to talk a bit more about Y Combinator.
Hi, everyone. My name is Don Ho. I'm a senior venture partner at the Pioneer Fund. The Pioneer Fund is a YC alumni fund made up of 190 alumni investing in YC startups. In particular, we find that Y Combinator, this batch, is extremely interesting. It's a fully remote batch with over 220 companies. And we anticipate that perhaps YC actually goes fully remote moving forward. One thing we really like about this batch actually is instead of having just net new companies with net new like ideas, we are seeing a surge in the Uber for X's in a different region. So what we've seen are like API companies and other companies that are taking, say, for example, the Plaid model, but moving it into their local economies. Some really interesting themes that we're starting to see in this batch over other batches from before includes the future of work. There's at least 5 to 7 companies in the batch addressing it in many different ways. The API for X's, so Plaid for payroll data or Plaid for your different databases. We also see a surge in creator economy or creator-enabled startups, and also as an extension, business-in-a-box startups that are just not just Shopify or Forex, but also sort of being a system of record of sorts for their users. And then certainly, you know, based on a lot of the conversations we've been excited about here, we're seeing a lot of synthetic biology startups in this space, in YC Dispatch too. This includes a synthetic tuna. This includes like an AWS for protein production. And this also includes new ingredients used to create synthetic foods. So I think there's going to be a lot of exciting YC deals coming up. And please follow the Slack for more allocation into these. Kingsley and I are both working on probably 5 to 10 deals right now within the current batch. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Don. Okay, great. And then we also have Turn Bio. So Sergio Ruiz can talk a bit more about that one.
Turn Bio is doing pretty well right now with starting partnerships with big pharma. There's at least 4 conversations happening right now. So we are taking advantage of the opportunity that the market has created in order to attract big pharma into the conversations of, you know, how to get things to market. The other thing that we're seeing is just growth in team. We're starting to see a lot of pharma executives take more of a deep interest into the aging space, which means, you know, we have great science now being backed by a lot of well-respected individuals, and we have congealed the dermatology, the ophthalmology indications, and the COPD indications, COPD/COVID pipelines. So we're very excited with the progress. Yeah, that's about as much as I can mention right now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sergio. And we have Ish to talk about Robinhood.
Hey guys, I'm Ish. I'm the founder of Golden Arc Capital, and Robinhood is a company I'm guessing everybody's pretty familiar with, and it's a company that we've been tracking for many years. We're in the process of closing an $18 million SPV in the company as we speak. I would say we have roughly 750,000 left in our SPV, and thought we'd open it up to this allocations network to see if there's any interest. I'm myself and my partner are personally investing 300,000 in this SPV, and happy to answer any questions and or or have an additional dialogue in the Robinhood channel that's set up on Slack.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ish. And finally, Aikido Lab. So we have Rohit to talk a bit more on that one.
Hey, everyone. Good morning. Real quick on Aikido, I've been following this company since before they went to YC in winter 15. They have built I think it's the largest and fastest growing public health data network in the country. It's all proprietary data. It is all heavily siloed, almost impossible for anyone to crack. They figured out the way to do it. And so they've just been growing extremely fast. I think it's triple 3x growth 2 years in a row. Revenues in the over 10 million. And we had an offer to preempted them with the term sheet. Absolutely crushed it, oversubscribed. We're at over $11 million raised, small bit left. Thought we'd put it up here to see if there are some value add investors to bring on. Let me think. The other relevant thing is COVID has been a massive tailwind for them. If you think about the value of a public health data network in a time like this, it is absolutely critical for launching population scale programming, whether it's tracking or getting healthcare out to people, delivery, and really, they've started even. I don't want to say these guys, they're at a crystal ball, but I mean they're even tracking to launch more in sort of the policing space. So they already had programs around de-escalation techniques and vulnerable population management, which is extremely important and critical. And I think this company is doing a lot of very timely work that is extremely relevant and also valuable.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rohit. And for August, we have the Heyman Capital second close for the 200x Hong Kong dollar short fund. So there's a huge amount of interest in the first close, and I will update everyone on the webinar and the information for the second close. But overall, thanks everyone for bringing such great deals. The deals are getting better and better, and yeah, thank you all for bringing them to the group. Okay, great. Now we have Ryan and Megan to talk about some space trends.
Thank you, Kingsley, and thank you everyone for being here again today. As you all know, I've reiterated every week that we are extremely bullish on the space sector. Just in Helios Capital alone, it's our most heavily invested sector of all of them. And one of the themes we touched on last week was the rise of space tourism since SpaceX had significantly launched a commercial rocket from US soil to the International Space Station. We have seen some of the most significant demand and interest, not just for SpaceX, but for Virgin Galactic as well. I actually just saw an article recently this morning. Virgin Galactic hands reins to man responsible for Disney's Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. So the current CEO, George Whitesides, he's stepping down from his CEO position, and he will now be taking on Chief Space Officer, which is pretty cool. I think if there was any title, I would like to hold that one of all of them. And they've brought on Disney executive Michael Colglazier, who's going to be the person that's going to be replacing Whitesides. However, Whitesides will still remain on to give strategic direction for the company. But this really shows that Virgin Galactic is starting to get away from the technical challenges of getting into space and starting to focus more on the challenges of running a commercial enterprise. And that's why we believe that tourism in the short term is going to be one of the driving forces for the space industry. It's not going to be the only thing. There are many things to profit off of in the space industry. But I think that this provides some of the most significant interest and demand because people can really visualize themselves taking off from a space plane and going to an Axiom space station and staying on a lunar base before taking a trip to Mars. We've been bullish on space for a while now, and through companies like Virgin Galactic using SPACs, which is similar to the SPV structure that we use, we're going to see companies go from private to being heavily accessed in the public market in 90 days instead of 6 months to a year. So it's really going to open the floodgates. There's so much pent up demand for access to great space companies, and with such limited access in the public markets, I think this is going to be one of the greatest stories in terms of industry development that we have seen in our lifetime. I believe that's a bit for my updates on the space end. We have some space deals. We had Axiom, we had SpaceX. Now we're working with Space Fund. Megan Crawford, the managing partner of Space Fund, gave a couple presentations in the past 2 weeks, and we're looking forward to joining the family. So without further ado, I'm going to let Megan give some more insight into what she's seeing in the space world. Megan?
Thanks, Ryan. And we are very much looking forward to having you guys as part of the family. Really excited to be working together. So as far as trends that I'm seeing, one of the trends that has kind of started to really increase lately is the influx of government dollars into the industry in kind of different formats and different ways than we've seen before. There's been, traditionally you have SBIR programs and other grant programs that help early stage startups. But we've really seen some transitioning lately to programs that are easier to implement and contracting processes that are much faster and easier for startups to deal with. And so a big part of this is AFWorks, the Air Force group that is set up to work with startups. That was a kind of a pilot program out of the Pentagon, and just this last week has been made a permanent program that will now be housed out of the AFRL, the Air Force Research Lab. So that's really good news that they've decided to make that program permanent and continue to fund it. And we've also recently seen NASA trying to kind of follow the Air Force's lead and starting a new pitch day program that's, again, much easier than that typical SBIR process. The government's also had a couple of unique things going on lately to help fund some of the space companies that were impacted by COVID. And so we're starting to see just a real increase in not just the number of government dollars going into the early stage part of this industry, but also the pace of those dollars and the increased easiness of getting those dollars. So that's all very, very, very good for the industry. And then the other thing that I'd like to talk about is launch. Space Fund is slightly notorious in this industry for calling out the launch sector, and specifically the rocket industry, as being oversaturated. We're currently tracking over 130 launch startups around the world. We believe there's room in the market for maybe 6 to 8 if we're being generous. But what I'm seeing there that's interesting is it used to be that there was a new launch company announced about every 10 minutes. In fact, a friend of mine has a bell in their office that every time a new launch company was announced, they'd ring the bell. But that pace has seemed to slow down a lot lately, which I actually think is really good news, because a lot of capital, a lot of human capital has been going into launch, where we think that's really pretty well solved already. You've got some great market leaders there. Relativity Space was mentioned earlier on this call, of course, SpaceX, Rocket Lab, Firefly. So as we're seeing less rocket companies starting up, that means that both the actual capital and the human capital is available to go into other startups that are benefiting from the enablement of launch, right? This low cost, frequent, reliable access to space makes new business models close now that never did before. And so we're starting to see a bit of a shift towards taking advantage of launch as opposed to trying to be a launch company, which I think is a very positive move for the industry. And then one last thing I just want to say before I turn it back over to Kingsley is that this coming Monday, July 20th, is the 51st anniversary of the Apollo landing on the moon. Space Fund will be doing a special webinar called "The Moon is Open for Business," in which we'll talk about what's different about the upcoming return to the moon, and how NASA is treating it very differently and treating it like a commercial project, not just a flags and footprints exploration project. So if you're interested in that, I'll post the information on the Space Slack channel to sign up for the webinar. But we will be celebrating that 51st anniversary on Monday, and talking about the commercial and profit potential of the next time we go to the moon.
Fantastic. Thank you, Megan, and thank you, Ryan. And we appreciate you keeping us on the cutting edge of space. Fantastic. So we have Sergio now to talk about some biotech trends.
So I'll kind of piggyback of the space sentiment here, because there's a huge overlap between space and biotech, right? We don't want to go to space and come back with cancer, or we don't want to go to space, get injured, and not be able to stop by the nearest hospital, you know, on the way back to Earth, simply because we're not able to, you know, we're in space, in the vacuum of space. So there's been a tremendous amount of overlap between biotech and space that's been driven by NASA. For example, we actually created at Methuselah, we created a prize, the Vascularization Challenge. So our pitch to NASA was, you really want to have a hospital in a box, so that, you know, if somebody needs to get medical attention, they can go ahead and do it rather quickly in a very reduced space, because, you know, it costs millions per pound, or a lot less now, but to get it out into space. So some of you invested in Volumetric, for example, who's a participant to this NASA prize. And the goal there is to create new tissues and organs and different kinds of technologies that are able to enable drug creation a lot faster based on human tissue, not on animal models like mice. So this is a trend, and more than a trend, I think it's a black swan event. It's a disruption that is coming to the biotech world, because there's a company called Vizient that has now created architecturally correct human tissue models for drug development. And they have been able to predict with 100% accuracy all the drugs in the liver. So they created liver models, small molecules that failed, and small molecules that would potentially go through the whole, you know, phases 1 through 4 in the FDA process successfully. So there's a trend that's going to start being replicated. In fact, look at Organovo, which is a publicly traded company, ticker stock ONVO, just filed an 8K. They're switching all their board members, but it seems like they certainly have the capabilities to do this. But it's a trend that's going to start disrupting the biotech world. 95% of drugs that work in mice don't work in humans. So if we're able to get human data from the get-go very early, we're going to be able to not only get drugs to market a lot faster, but also in a much cheaper way. And that's always a good thing. Another, and I will call this a trend, is there was a transparency market research done recently about ophthalmology. So the prediction is 4.1% growth for the next foreseeable future, I guess 9 years in ophthalmology, because of the aging population. You know, a lot of us have glasses as we get older, so we like to get rid of them. And there's a lot of push from pharmas all over the world. And I can see this because all of a sudden, out of the blue, in the last 3 months, a significant number of our portfolio companies are now talking to pharma in the space of ophthalmology. So it's really interesting to see. Take a look at all these pharmas that are public, that have a bent to ophthalmology indications. If you want to invest in them, you're going to see some pretty nice profit there. If you have a startup that has a technology that could be used in ophthalmology, I suggest you take a look at it because it could probably bring about nice returns.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sergio. And yes, excited for more ophthalmology applications. Perfect. So our final speaker, we have Brian Frank to talk about clean meats.
Hi, thanks everybody, and Kingsley. Brian Frank, FTW Ventures general partner. We invest in the science technology behind food and agriculture. And you probably know me from the last call where I covered some of the major trends in clean meat. Let me just reiterate some of those, and I'll talk about some of the deals that we're seeing coming through the pipeline right now. So one of the trends that I highlighted in the last call was that there were a lot of clean meat companies coming to market these days, and several mega rounds that have been announced in the last several months, and one new mega round that's going to be coming. A lot of companies like Memphis Meats, one of the leaders in the category, are raising significant amounts of capital to build pilot factories to get to first commercialization of their product. And we also see that, and this came up in the allocations groups, that Mosa Meats, one of the earliest players in the clean meat space, is also in the process of raising a mega round, $65 million in euros for their production facility that they're going to be scaling up to as well. They obviously want to, kind of keep the pressure on and kind of keep their name out there as one of the leaders in this space and compete with Memphis and others that are trying to scale up production right now to get commercialization. The other trend that I pointed out was that every category of protein or alternative meat is up for grabs right now. We're seeing work in beef, pork, chicken, fish, shellfish, and even some meats that don't exist or didn't exist. The interesting thing is people are going beyond the traditional meats. My company that we invested in, Geltor, had originally produced proteins from mammoth DNA and had shown that that's possible to go back in history and recreate things. And we've got one deal actually coming through that's trying to go beyond traditional meats with exotic meats and things that are historically may even be tastier or better than the meats that we have today. And we'll talk about that. And then we have a rise of companies working to service the clean meat industry. So as I said, the clean meat industry in my last talk, the clean meat industry is based on technologies from media in which the cells are grown, the scaffolding on which the cells have to adhere or create texture and the form of the meat, as well as the bioreactors in which these are grown, which are all technology that's evolving. And so we're seeing now a service industry of companies that are trying to build all of these technologies. And we'll talk about some of those service industries that are raising. So I want to talk about two rounds that recently closed in the last couple quarters that are important for the sector. One is New Age Meats. So they're cell culturing pork, and they came out of the Indie Bio Accelerator from a previous batch, and they had raised a seed two of roughly around $2 million to scale up their pork production. That's one of the teams that we're tracking that has some great scientists and great experience in kind of cell culturing, and they're working on pork sausage, which is very interesting, and a category that's going to be big in the Asia market. We also had been tracking Artemis Foods, a cell culturing company for ground meats. The key to Artemis was their chief science officer is a woman by the name of Jess Krieger. Jess has actually done IP work in bioreactors and had done her work in Ohio at one of the major universities on cell culturing and bioreactors designed for this. So we believe that she has some innate knowledge and some skills that were developed through her university work that will nicely translate into her company that she and another guy by the name of Joshua March had developed. They recently raised from Valor, Box Group's Prelude Capital. We believe it was around $3.54 million for their seed round. So they're off to the races and a company to really watch in this space. We have several current and upcoming rounds. So there's Cultured Decadence, which is raising a current pre-seed round, but is trying to kind of bolt that together with a seed round raise of about $2.6 million in total. They're culturing lobster and crab meat. And we believe, because we have some expertise in aquaculture, that culturing crustaceans might actually be easier than culturing the meat from, land-based animals and things like that. So we're researching and digging deep into that category. We're also tracking another company coming out of Australia called Val Meats. Val Meats is currently raising a $10 million Series A. They are developing cell lines for exotic animals or extinct animals. And basically, this is the go beyond beef, go beyond pork strategy, which is maybe there was tasty things and other components that we can learn from history or from other animals that aren't as abundantly used in the meat industry to make even better products. So their argument is beef and pork become a commodity very quickly, but what if we had something that's even better, that's 10x better than meat that's on the market today? It's talented scientists, chefs down in Australia. They have one of the best Australian VC firms backing them in Blackbird already. We're tracking Multis Media coming out of IndieBio New York. So IndieBio New York has their first generation program, and they have a media company that's developing media and serums that are animal free and cheaper for the cultured meat companies to come in. Generally after the program, these companies will raise a $2 million seed or somewhere around that. And they're taking a little bit of pre-seed kind of through the program and stuff like that. So definitely a company to watch. I already mentioned Mosa Meats. That's their 65 million euro round is coming up, and we have some details on that. And then I think someone mentioned earlier a YC company called Kuliana that's in the tuna space. They're doing plant and synthetic biology. We're trying to get details on more in depth of what their synthetic biology work is, but it's more plant-based as far as we understand it. Two other announcements I just want to make real quickly. One is people should be aware of the Genesis Consortium, just started by SOSV, one of the leading investors in biotechnology, and the Mayfield Fund. They now share a partner in Arvind Gupta, who just moved to the Mayfield Fund this week. He will be serving as their partner in synthetic biology, and Arvind is known as having invested in Perfect Day, Memphis Meats, Geltor, New Age Meats, a number of players in this space. So the Genesis Consortium is something very interesting to watch. We expect to see more cell ag and clean meat companies coming through that. And the last announcement is just, for our fund, we're running an investor event in September 15th, mainly for APAC investors. It'll be 14th here in the US, 15th in Asia. And we'll have Shiok Meats, the synthetic seafood company for shrimp and shellfish, presenting at our event. So anybody that wants to come to that, please email me at bf@ftw.vc. I look forward to more of these deals. Thanks, Kingsley.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brian. And very impressed by your deal flow and excited for you to bring us the next Beyond Meats. Fantastic.
Yeah, Brian's a rock star.
Oh, fantastic deal flow. Okay, great. Well, thank you for joining. We had some fantastic speakers today. And now Ryan and I will stay on for Q&A. And I will share my screen. So for all of those that want to stay on, we will be going over things like how do I pledge for a deal? How do I bring a deal to the group? How do SPVs work? So welcome to stay. Oh yeah, one last thing. We also have the master prospect. So for all of these deals that we discussed today, we do have the Allocations Slack prospects, Google Sheets. In here, you can see the number of pledges. And then say if I bring out that SpaceX one, we can, if we're interested in coming in, can just, let's say Ben wants to come in for 10K, can just plug that in. And then when it comes to onboarding, one of the team will get back to you on the next steps for onboarding. So that's how you pledge for a deal. Another common question is, how do I bring a deal to the group? So we have a prospects channel in the Slack where you can follow the format and put the deal information in that. And then people can put a thumbs up on the interest. And then once there's enough interest, we make a DD channel. And then after that, we generally have a group DD call where we get you to usually bring in the CEO of the company, or if you're doing an SPV, if you give a brief overview of the deal. And once there's enough interest, we start onboarding for the deal. Okay, great. And one of the other common questions is, how do SPVs work? So we've seen a lot of SPVs, and we're fortunate to have the Allocations Fund Administration infrastructure to help us close deals faster. So for the SpaceX deal, for example, once Ryan secures the allocation, we will reach out to all of those people on the sheet and allow them to onboard extremely quickly into the deal. So I can give a quick demo. We have the data room here with the info on the deal, and then we have the signing and wiring. So the signing is done all through DocuSign. So if you see here, we have the SPV docs and just the information on the deal, and it's super quick to onboard. And for each SPV, we do a separate bank account per SPV. So they're three of the most common questions that we get. But if you have any other questions, happy to ping in the chat. And one other thing, we may, Sergio had a good idea to do breakout rooms for different sectors for the next call. So we may consider that for the next call as well. So we can have a clean meats room, we can have a biotech room and a space room just to cover specific questions on those sectors. Fantastic. Well, thank you all for joining, and we'll see you all in the Slack.